Back when my brothers were little, we loved to read the stories in the Busy Town book by Richard Scarry. The illustrations were awesome. The stories were really cute. And so at St. Ignatius of Loyola's church festival a few years back, they always have a used book sale. And I decided to pick up a Richard Scarry compilation that I saw there. I thought it was really cute. And I thought, someday I'll have grandkids. It might be nice to read some stories to them. So the book sat for weeks and weeks, months, a couple years. And I happened to walk past the bookshelf and saw it there. And I was like, I had to look at it and just see if I recognize any of the stories from when my brothers were little and I read the stories with them. And as I was thumbing through the book, I came across a picture of a bear holding a gun and aiming it at a large moose. And I thought, well, this seems out of character for Richard Scarry and the beloved Busy Town folks. I should probably look into this. And as I read the story, it was, clearly written in a time when, hunting and trapping were, commonplace. And it really seemed that, in this day and age, we're shocked by some of the behaviors that one bear would, have against the rest of the animals in the world. So anyway, I'm going to read this story and I hope you enjoy it. All right, this is a story actually written by Richard Scarry's wife, Patricia. Somewhere in the 60s or 50s, I'm not sure exactly when. And it's a story about Pierre Bear. In a windswept cabin away up north lived brave Pierre Bear. He lived all by himself. When Pierre wanted a fish supper, he went fishing all alone. He cut a hole in the ice and dropped in his fishing line. Soon he pulled out a big, big fish. For Pierre was a great fisherman. Pierre went home and cooked his fish. He put the red cloth on the table, and he sat before the fire to eat his fine fish supper. I wish there was someone here to share my supper, thought lonely Pierre Bear. Then Pierre climbed between the soft furs that were his bed. He went to sleep and dreamt a happy dream. He dreamt that he was with a lot of other bears who were laughing and singing and never lonely. Next morning, when Pierre Bear looked in his cupboard, he saw that he needed more food. So he took his big rifle and headed for the wild woods to hunt the terrible moose, the biggest, wildest animal of the north. Pierre walked across the snow until he found the huge tracks of the terrible moose. Then he blew a moose call on his moose-calling horn. And a huge, terrible moose came crashing through the woods. His antlers were enormous. His hoofs beat like thunder as he charged for Pierre. But the brave little bear was not afraid. He shot him. Bang! And the moose fell dead, for Pierre was the bravest hunter of all the north. Pierre took his moose home, and he made a moose stew, and moose pie, and moose cake, and 13 jars of minced moose meat. His cupboard was full, and he wished that he had someone to help him eat all that good food. Then one day it came time for Pierre Bear to take the furs he had hunted all season to the trading post to sell. He piled them on his sled and went off on the long journey through the woods. He wore his red hat and his best snowshoes. The trading post was a jolly place, and the traders greeted Pierre merrily. They counted his furs, they weighed the skins, and they gave him a lot of money for them. Pierre went to a store to spend his money. From a pleasant lady bear he bought some pans to cook with. I need a guitar to sing to, for I live alone, said Pierre. So he bought a guitar. There is something else I need. Now what can it be? Said Pierre. If you live all alone, you need company, said the lady bear. She is right, thought Pierre. So the very next day, Pierre Bear made the lady bear his wife. He tucked her into his sled with his new guitar and his pots and pans, and away they went over the snow to his cabin. It was very nice to have Mrs. Pierre Bear around the cabin. She hung her bonnet on the new hat rack, and it looked very gay. She cooked a fine supper in the new pots and pans. When Pierre strummed his guitar and sang, Mrs. Pierre giggled and clapped. And so they lived happily all year long. Then one day, spring came to the north. The snow melted and dripped from the windows. Wildflowers bloomed on the roof of the cabin. But best of all, spring brought a little baby bear to Mr. and Mrs. Pierre Bear. He was round and funny and full of fun, and oh, how they loved him. Now Pierre never goes fishing alone, for the baby bear goes with him. One day Pierre Bear decided he needed new fur coats for the whole family, so he and little Pierre paddled their little boats through the thundering ocean to the place where the fur seal lived. They hunted for the biggest, wildest, furriest seal. They found him, and they shot him. Bang! For Pierre and little Pierre were two great hunters. They took the sealskin back to their cabin. Pierre dried the skin and cut it into sleeves and such. Then, with her bone needle, Mrs. Pierre sewed them all coats. They were the finest coats in the north. They should be, said Mrs. Pierre proudly, for you are the two greatest hunters of all the north. So I guess we have a couple lessons to be learned here. Of course, if you are a bear and you have a gun, then it's okay to shoot other animals. That's totally fine. And being brave is really easy when you're the only one with a gun. We learned that. When you have a big pile of furs and such, and you go and trade them in and you get a bunch of money, then you get a guitar. Well, now you're a rock star and chicks are going to dig you. And so you can just easily just make some woman your wife that you just met. And so that was okay back in the 50s and 60s. So we learned that lesson. And then, we learned that, when you have a child, it's okay to give that child a gun. It's okay to take that child out hunting because it's all part of, nature and stuff. If you're a bear and you're brave, sure, that's what you do. You get them a gun and you take them out and you teach them how to shoot a big seal. And then you show them how to cut up the different pieces to make some clothing out of it. And of course, you don't want to use a needle made out of metal or anything because, you got so many bones lying around from all the crap that you've killed. So you want to use a bone needle when you do that. And really, if you're a bear, you just get to do whatever the fuck you want to do, apparently.